Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. We are going to go ahead and get started with today's presentation. Welcome to the Arizona chapter's virtual event, How to Utilize State-of-the-Art Document Management. Today's presentation is approved for one certified forensic litigation consultant contact hour. Please note that the opinions and views expressed in this webinar are presented by a third-party speaker, which does not automatically constitute or imply FEWA's endorsement. FEWA appreciates volunteers who give their time and efforts to share information with our members. Prior to the presentation, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping notes. To minimize background noises, all attendees are muted, and the speaker will allow time for question and answers at the end. Throughout the presentation, you can submit your questions using the webinar chat feature or the Q&A feature found at the bottom of your screen. And we will collect those questions and ask them directly of the presenter. Thank you in advance for keeping your questions and responses professional and specific to your individual needs. I would now like to hand it over to Larry Dunville, who will be introducing today's speaker. Larry?
Good morning or afternoon, depending what part of the country you're in. Just as a quick introduction, I've done a fair amount of studying on trying to learn how to use the computer or iPads in a way that makes me more productive. And in the past, or even up to currently, we still use the electronic means, digital means, as a copy of what paper is. And it just seems like we're only getting, the nice thing is I can carry around a couple hundred files on my iPad. But other than that, I'm still doing things the same old way I used to. It's not until I saw Craig and Liquidtext that I learned that, for lack of a better term, there's like three-dimensional aspect to reading the enormous amount of paper we have and getting these things to relate to each other. And so what Craig's going to show you is a whole new way of thinking, and I can't wait to hear what you all have to think about it. So Craig, take it away.
Hello, everyone. This is Craig Tashman. First of all, thank you all so much for the opportunity to be here. Larry, thank you so much for the very kind introduction. So to begin with, let me go over to a PowerPoint here. So the way I'd like to structure this today is I want to run through just a few very quick slides, giving kind of the 30,000-foot overview, very redundant with what Larry just explained, but kind of give a little bit of a sense of what Liquidtext is. After that, we'll spend most of the time doing a demo, and I want to walk you through the application. We've put together a very, very simplistic little demo scenario of that should be hopefully relevant to the way you guys work and some of your needs. And then I'd love to do Q&A and hear your thoughts and your reactions. So, to begin with, I'm the founder and CEO of Liquidtext. And what is Liquidtext? Well, it starts by the easiest way to start is to think about the problem, right? So we know computers help us find the most relevant content. We use everything from specialized legal searches to Google all day long. We know computers help us create great content, composition tools from Google Docs all the way to more specialized things. But how do computers help us digest, understand, make sense, and compile the things we find into something meaningful? And the problem is, in a lot of ways, they actually don't. Ultimately, we found, and a lot of studies have found, that about 80% of knowledge workers continue to prefer paper to computer. So to Larry, to your point, yes, we keep on using paper, but there's reasons why. People generally tend to find it easier. And so why is that? Well, I did my PhD actually studying this. And what we found was that people tend to think paper is this really great place for reading. It's really ideal. But it turns out it actually isn't. It has certain problems. I was just told folks are not seeing my screen. Give me one moment here. Let me see if we can fix that. Yes. All right. My apologies. Let me know if there's still any problems with that. Okay, so as I was saying, so we studied paper, we studied the way people use it, and we found something interesting. When engineers have generally tried to create reading experiences in a digital form, what they've largely done is taken paper and then kind of, as Larry was like saying, replicate it on a computer. And the problem is that doesn't work. You end up inheriting paper's limitations without really inheriting its benefits. So with Liquidtext, we approached this really fundamentally differently. We said, instead of trying to imitate paper, let's study the way people read. Let's study the fundamentals of how people actually assimilate information, synthesize it, and integrate it into a whole, and build something from first principles based on that. And so 4 years of my research at Georgia Tech, 2 peer-reviewed papers, and a doctoral dissertation later, we wound up with Liquidtext. The idea is really to integrate reading and note-taking into a single experience based on the way people think. And the goal of this is to make your research, to make your investigations more efficient, more insightful, and more transparent, easier to see kind of where things came from, how the knowledge developed. So the piece the first piece of our company was our iPad app. We're very excited to have recently launched our Windows and Mac OS apps as well. But for the purposes of this demo, I'll be doing it on my iPad. And our apps in total have won all kinds of awards: Apple Most Innovative App, App Store Editor's Choice. We've been featured everywhere from CIO to the New York Times. Law 360 said we were world changing, so we're incredibly proud of that. And with all that said, let's move on to a demo. So, okay. So let me set up the scenario here that I'm going to use as a kind of foil to show how Liquidtext could be used in your context. So let's say you're an expert witness in a medical case, and the situation is you had a patient who just had a new stem cell-based arthritis procedure done on her hip to relieve her hip arthritis. Unfortunately, it didn't work. She got a little bit of inflammation, but no actual improvement. And she blames the doctor for having done it wrong. The doctor claims that she just wasn't a great patient for this, or that she wasn't really the right kind of person for this, and that he warned her about that in advance. And so we're going to go through here, try to look over the facts and see if we can make some sense of what's going on. So to start with, it'd be good to understand a little bit more about what the ASCA, American Stem Cell Association, says about these kinds of procedures. And obviously, I've picked fake procedures and everything fake for the purposes of the demo. So we'll start by going to, or maybe stepping back a moment. So this is the Liquidtext screen I'm showing you now. And the way Liquidtext is set up, on the left, you have your documents. On the right, you have a workspace where you can take notes and things like that. Over all the way far on the left over here, we have your list of documents that you're using for this particular project. You can organize them into folders, as I have here, and you have some of the tools that you need as well. So let's begin with this. Let's start by looking at the regulatory bodies folder, where I've already pulled in some of the documents I'll need. And so we have the American Stem Cell Association best practices. And so I'll open that up. And so to begin with, I'm going to make a little note in my workspace, make a little text box, and say, is this patient a good candidate? Because again, the doctor's claiming that she wasn't. We're a little skeptical here. So let's see what we can find. So as we start reading the ASCA best practices, we see that they make an important note here. They say most adults are actually good candidates for this cartilage regeneration procedure. Well, that's important. So I selected that text. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just drag that text out into the workspace like this and actually connect these guys together. So notice the first thing I did. I saw important information in one of my documents. I can just bring it right out and organize it over here in my workspace. Okay, well, that's helpful. But they mention a little bit later, they talk about figure 1 for a more detailed algorithm to decide who's a good candidate. Well, I want to look at that algorithm, but I also want to compare it to the text I'm reading now. Well, normally when you want to compare something to things that are on different pages, it's actually pretty awkward. But with Liquidtext, we said, we want to let you see the important things together. So I can take 2 fingers and just squeeze the document. So I'm pinching the document with 2 fingers. You can also do it with a mouse, but I'm using my fingers in this case. and I'm squeezing the document to bring the pages together. And look what's happening. They're crunching together like they're made of rubber. So now I can view the algorithm in the form of this flow diagram next to the text side by side, even though they're on different pages. Okay, that's actually pretty powerful. So I want to keep track of this flow diagram. So I'm going to take it. Actually, we don't want all that. I'll select the piece of it that I'm looking for here, and then we will just take it and drag it out into the workspace. So you see, I can take text, I can take pictures, all very, very easily, and organize them together like this. Well, that's great. Now I'd like to find out a little bit more and see, what's the history of this patient? Was she actually a good candidate for this? So I'm going to go over to my documents portion all the way on the right here. And I see patient medical record. I'll open that. And here's our patient medical record for Arlene McCaffrey. And we'll scroll down a little bit. And we already have highlighted here some of the problems that she has. Well, she has diabetes, hypertension, and of course the arthritis. Now let's do a quick comparison here and look over this flow diagram. And if we look it over, we can see she's under 65, she's not immune compromised, she has no history of carcinomas, but she does have high blood pressure. So we can circle this here, and you see she's in the closely monitored category. So, the surgeon wasn't entirely wrong. This is something to keep in mind. So I'll make a little note here saying, patient is in the closely monitored category. Okay. So that's an important start. So what next? Well, why don't we see how the doctor actually did this procedure and find out, maybe the doctor did it right, maybe the doctor made some mistakes. Let's do a little bit more investigation here. So to that end, I'll go next to this and I'll make another little text box. I'll say, how doctor performed the procedure. We'll just tag this green as well. Okay. So to look this up, I'll go back to my documents list on the left, open depositions. And I see there's the deposition from the surgeon. So let's open that and learn a little bit about how the doctor did this. So I've already gone through this deposition and I've highlighted the specific steps the doctor took, but I kind of like to see all the steps together. Now, again, there's that problem that they're on different pages, they're spread apart, there's a lot of content between them. But with Liquidtext, we have, again, these features for letting you see the important things together. So I'm going to select this over on the top left here. I'm going to select highlight view. The highlight view is one of the most striking things in Liquidtext. You can now either using your mouse or your fingers, you can just squeeze the document. And now it brings all of my highlighted materials together with as much or as little context as I need. And it's dynamic. So I can just squeeze and change this right as I'm reading. So super powerful, super unique. So let's take a look at this now. So what do we find? Well, we see that first of all, they took a stem cell culture that they received as part of the treatment package and they grew it. So I'm going to take each of these little points I highlighted and just pull them out over to the left here like this. Okay, so you see that one. They prepped her for surgery. Okay, very reasonable. They did a blood pressure and blood sugar check. Very reasonable. They performed the incision. And then they inserted a dissolving joint spacer. Let's see. And then the attorney asked, did you do anything before that? Oh, well, that's actually important because notice the doctor didn't actually give this testimony in order. So one of the nice things we're going to do here in the workspace is now we can rearrange it from the way it's written in the document and arrange it for the way that makes sense for us, and which in this case is in order. So he said that first of all, one of the things they did is they dried the bone fascia. Okay, that's actually potentially really important here. So we'll take this out. And he says they removed all the synovial fluid in the joint. We'll take this out too. That's also really important. And then let's see, then they applied the dissolving joint spacer. They applied the ICM matrix gel. That's the preparatory gel that you need before you can put these stem cells on. They let it set for 15 minutes. They discovered a small bone spur on the femur. Okay, and they shaved it off. I suppose that's not a problem. Then they applied the stem cell culture. And finally, they closed the patient up. Okay, well, doesn't sound unreasonable offhand. So, why don't we go look at what the manufacturer's instructions are, and see what they say. So let's go and we'll close depositions. We'll go to Galaxidrin. Galaxidrin is the name of the system they were using. Galaxidrin product info. And so we'll go to the product manual from Telenova Biosciences here, and we'll just scroll down, and they have the overview of the application process of how you're supposed to use this. So what do we find here? Well, let's see. They talk about the pre-op. They talk about bone prep, cartilage prep, prepare the joint, apply the matrix gel. They say it's very important that it be left on exactly 15 minutes. So a little prettier. There we are. Exactly 15 minutes. Remove the excess. Put on the stem cell cultures, and so on. Well, from the looks of it, it actually seems like they follow this procedure to the letter. Like, I don't see anything here that suggests any problems. So what could be going on? Maybe we should take a look at the FDA approval notes from when they did their phase 3 trials for Galaxidrin. Maybe that would give us some more insights into what might have caused this, this odd situation that this patient had. So we'll go to regulatory bodies, and we have the phase 3 trials for Galaxidrin. So, the whole tons and tons of information from these phase 3 trials. But let's just do a quick word search here for inflammation. And notice it's really great doing searches in Liquidtext. I can just start typing, and it brings up the search dialog that lets me indicate where and how I want to do the search. And so I'll just search this document. And it found a few examples of inflammation in these phase 3 trial notes. But I'd kind of like to see them all together to see if there's any connections between them. So I'm going to, again, just squeeze the document with my fingers here, and look what happens. All of the instances of this term, of inflammation in this case, squeezed together with, again, just like the highlights, with as little or as much context as I need. So I can see them all together. It's almost like I can pivot this document on a word or a phrase. Okay, so I look here, and I see something really, really significant. In this example, in this instance, it says joint inflammation coincided with the failure of the treatment in the case of one patient, in a case where the administering surgeon only applied the preparatory gel for 2 minutes instead of the normal 15 minutes. Well, that's actually really significant. So first thing I want to do is I want to take that and pull that out here. So in theory, the doctor claims that he did that he let the gel sit for 15 minutes, but this is pretty significant. So I'm going to just take this, pull it out, and just put it over here next to my notes. Okay, so now I'm wondering if maybe I'm starting to see what's going on. Maybe the doctor didn't really apply it for 15 minutes. So let's go back into the depositions here, and let's open up what the nurse said, because she was also deposed. And so if we look at the lead nurse's deposition, we can go through and basically do the same thing. We can turn on highlight view, squeeze it together, see all the different things that she mentioned. And let's see if there's anything here that could be an interesting starting point. Well, she talks about the bone spur and so on. And she says, yeah. And she actually says right here that as soon as the timer hit 15 minutes, they use suction to remove the ICM matrix gel. So based on what the nurse says, it sounds like they did everything right. But I really want to compare the nurse's account to the doctor's account, make sure there's nothing else that could be a problem. So look what I'm going to do. We have the nurse's deposition transcript open. I'm going to take the doctor's deposition transcript and just drag it in here as well. And now look at this. Now we can compare these two documents right next to each other, and we can look at them side by side. And so, they both described 15 minutes. That seems reasonable. But you know what? Now that I see these two next to each other, I see something that is a little bit interesting. Oops. They both talk about shaving this bone spur. But, the nurse talks about, let's see, they shave the bone spur off. I'm sorry, the doctor talks about shaving the bone spur off, but the nurse says something really interesting as well. She says that Dr. Feld flushed the debris with saline. Well, that seems very reasonable. But Dr. Feld mentions that that they put this that they shaved this bone spur off after only 10 minutes. That sounds interesting. That makes me wonder about this. So first of all, I want to connect these two because now I've just found an important relationship between two different documents. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line from the first document at the relevant location into the second document at the relevant location. And look what's happened. It's created a live ink link crisscrossing between these two documents. This is really powerful because later on, as I'm reading the nurse's transcript, if I want to get back to the same relevant place in the doctor's transcript, I can just touch this little button here. And look what it does. It brings the surgeon's transcript right back up, and I can see the exact place that I was looking at before. So, okay, so this is kind of significant. So first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to say that Dr. Feld flushed out the debris with saline. So we're going to take this and pull this out because this actually could be really huge here. And likewise, Dr. Feld says after 10 minutes, they discovered the bone spur. So together, this kind of gives the indication that maybe they flushed the bone spur out. They took off the bone spur, then flushed out the joint with the saline, and in doing so, washed away the ICM matrix gel. But let's learn a little bit more first before we jump to that conclusion. So let's go back to the galaxidrin product info here and see if it says anything about that matrix gel if water could maybe damage it or anything like that while it's setting. And so let's take a look here. Well, actually, they do say something pretty important, right? They say that, let's see, that the gel must be completely undisturbed right here. See, that's kind of that could be a problem. And they specifically mention also that the joint needs to be dry. They need to dry the bone fascia before you put the ICM matrix gel in. So let's take this out here, leave it undisturbed for 15 minutes because it's starting to sound like they didn't actually do that. So we'll bring this over to our notes as well. But there is still that question. We don't really know if water could be a problem for this. But I noticed we also have the material safety data sheet for galaxidrin. So let's take a look at that and see if there's anything there that could be helpful for us. And as we look at it, actually, there is something helpful. The solubility in water of the galaxidrin matrix gel is actually very, very high. So we're going to pull this out as well and incorporate this with the other notes. So, now it looks like we have our story coming together really, really nicely. In effect, we have, we'll make a little note here. In effect, what we think happened is the surgeon shaved off a bone spur and washed away the debris. Also washing away the matrix gel prep solution. So this is our theory. Now, because this relates to all these different pieces here, one of the great things with Liquidtext is I can use ink links to actually show these connections. So I can actually just draw links here and draw links here into any other relevant points. And then as I move this around, you see these links stay, so I can always find those sources again. One of the other really powerful things is, as I go back to, let's say, the surgeon transcript and the nurse transcript, I can also just draw a link from the document into this note. So again, later on, when I'm somewhere else, I can always just tap this link and get right back to the source. This notion of being able to create these live links anywhere throughout your projects is one of the most striking and really unique features of Liquidtext, just how incredibly easy it is to connect different ideas together. So now that we've organized all this, and we have this great workspace here with all these notes, and we built a pretty compelling argument in favor of the patient, well, what do we do with this? I mean, we have all this material spread over, a 2D workspace, lots of documents. How do we share this? Well, this is another great thing about Liquidtext. I can just go to share, and I can go to notes outline. And, oh, that's unfortunate. Pardon me one moment here. We'll go back into our document. Sometimes when we have Zoom running, behaves a little bit strangely. There we are. Okay, we go right back in here, and you see what happened. It took my workspace, two-dimensional workspace, and arranged it into a nice, simple, linear document that I can go and export to Microsoft Word. Bring it right into Word, make any final edits I need, and then I can send it off to the attorneys or to the judge. Just like that. Of course, I can also export this as a PDF and in other ways too. So with that all said, one other thing I'll mention is that this is, of course, a really, really simple and sort of synthetic situation. In a real case, you would probably have pages and pages in your workspace and, hundreds upon hundreds, if not thousands of excerpts that you've pulled out. And so one of the things that we noticed is, when people have larger workspaces, they need more sophisticated tools for organization. So one thing that we've added recently that we're really excited about is tagging. So let's say all three of these excerpts here are evidence that's, or we review it and we decide the surgeon did everything right. So we'll select tags here, and we'll add some tags to these. We'll make the category review, and we'll make the name of these correct. And see, I click add, and look what happens. We add these nice little tags to these excerpts. But maybe on further contemplation, I realized that actually the physician did something wrong in this case. So I'll go to tags, I'll remove correct, and I'll add a new tag, review, and it corrects it, finishes it for me. And I'll add mistake, and I'll set that to be bright red, and we'll add that. And so now we can add that in there. And of course, I can now add these tags really easily to whichever of these excerpts I want. Maybe we take this one, and we also add that this one is correct. Okay, so now let's say I want to find all the excerpts where a mistake was made very quickly. Well, instead of just having to look for it by eye, I can do a quick search for any mistake tags. Hit enter, and it takes me right there. And of course, I can zoom out and see the workspace as a whole to look for others and jump back and forth between them. So this is kind of our nutshell demonstration. Let me pause here and take any questions to start with.
Thanks, Craig. We have one question, and that is, are you working from a PDF?
That's a great question. In this case, these documents are PDFs, but we can also import web pages, PowerPoints, and Word files.
Great, thank you. And then a follow-up question is, what are the other programs other than the one being demoed that are part of the latest innovations we will learn about today?
Today we're demonstrating just Liquidtext.
Thank you. Those are all the questions that we've received so far.
Okay.
Oh, wait, 1 second. They're coming in now. Okay, is it possible to create chronology? Maybe it's supposed to be
a chronology. Yeah. So great question. You can see here that we've done it manually by just assembling different points as they came out. One of the things that we're planning on adding probably late summer, early fall is the ability to take chronological tags. So I can, tag an excerpt with, the point in time where it happened, and then have the system automatically sort by that chronology. But I would actually love to hear any more thoughts. We are interested in adding a chronology feature, or in general, excerpt sort features, is actually based on folks in the legal space who've said, they end up with huge amounts of evidence. They want to sort by client, they want to sort by party, they want to sort by chronology, and a litany of different things. So if you guys have specific thoughts about how you like sorting to work, we would love to hear it.
Wonderful, thank you. And then do the PDF files need to be searchable?
That's a good question. They do. Liquidtext is not using OCR at this point, and even if it was OCRing, a 5,000-page PDF is going to take a while. At this point, you can use the PDFs. You can import them. You can pull out excerpts, even if they're not searchable. But in order to search them in Liquidtext, then they need to be searchable.
Wonderful. And then one last question before we'll let you resume your presentation, or statement rather, and it says that they need to sort by date.
Sort by date. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. And that's definitely something that we're interested in adding. And any more thoughts about obviously additional thoughts about that, or dates of the document versus dates of the event that's being described in the document are definitely the things that we're thinking about. So again, we're always open to hearing more thoughts and feedback.
Thank you.
Cool. Sure. So my presentation was really focused on showing the app and taking questions, and certainly learning anything we can from you guys about how we can what you would like to see from it and directions that we could take it. I can go on, talk a little bit about kind of the benefits that Liquidtext provides, who some of our customers are. But if you guys have more thoughts or feedback about things that you would like to see in a system like this, I would love to hear that.
Sure, we're getting some more statements and questions here.
Sure.
And then asking, can you integrate CAD programs like AutoCAD?
Oh, that's a really good question. We don't have an integration with AutoCAD yet. We have a lot of folks, actually a significant number of folks in the architectural and design community who do use Liquidtext, and generally they do it by printing their specifications out to PDF and then importing them into the app.
Thank you. How many documents can be used at one time? Is there a memory requirement for RAM?
That's a good question. So it depends on what we mean by at one time. So in the documents list here for a given project, there's no limit on that. The app is actually really smart about not keeping all of the things in the documents list in memory at once. The number of documents that you can actually display on the screen at the same time on our iPad app is limited to 3. Our Windows app, we've raised that to 5, and you can also arrange them horizontally as well as vertically.
Can you add spreadsheets? Where are the records stored?
Okay, good, both questions. So spreadsheets, we actually do not have a spreadsheet importer right now. That's definitely something that we're thinking about and interested in. If you guys have specific use cases and scenarios, that would be really great to hear, because the more we kind of understand about how you want to use a feature, it makes it easier for us to think about how we'd want to implement it. Second, in terms of where the record's stored, so Liquidtext right now, everything is stored locally on your Windows machine, your Mac, or your iPad. Now, we're actually getting ready to release a feature we're really excited about. We're getting ready to release a synchronization and backup system, as well as collaboration a little bit later this year. So syncing and backup are set to come out in the next 60, 90 days or so. Collaboration is set to come out a little bit later, probably early to mid fall. So right now, everything is purely on your device. If you decide to opt into using our synchronization and collaboration, then of course it will be stored in our Liquidtext cloud, which is secure, built on top of Microsoft Azure. And for folks who are interested, we can certainly go into more detail about that.
Thank you. For the spreadsheet example, this person works with defects in software failure and would want to link pivot tables into the notes section for the defects.
Okay, very interesting. All right, thank you very much. Yeah.
And then for the document list on the left, are the documents received from the attorney?
It's whatever workflow makes sense for you. So the way you can pull documents in, this might actually be something good to talk about. Liquidtext is meant as a fairly general tool in the sense of you can kind of take in documents from wherever you need them. So if we tap add document here, this is adding another document to your current project. You can go to document file, which would simply take me to either any of the standard things that Apple's already connected to, Dropbox, Box, OneDrive, and so on. I can also, of course, pull in a web page. I can pull in image files, and I can duplicate things from other Liquidtext projects. So if you're to work with the attorney, most likely what they do is depending on the attorney, they would probably have something like a shared Dropbox, and you could just put your Liquidtext project there. What we would certainly encourage people towards once collaboration comes out is to simply use our collaboration mechanisms, which will make that really, really effortless. And the attorney could then just share the Liquidtext project with you directly.
Thank you. Let's see here. I'm getting all the questions from the chat, and then we'll move over to the questions from the Q&A tab.
Sure.
Okay. Can you run through the export of the workspace into a Word doc again?
By all means. So very straightforward. We just tap on the top right, you have the send button. We tap that, and you'll see we have a few different send options here. You can send a Liquidtext project file, and this is, of course, for someone else who's also using the software. Then you have PDF file that basically takes all of your documents and your workspace, staples them together into one large PDF, so you have everything in the same place, in as close a form as possible to the way it looks in Liquidtext. And then, of course, the third one, you have notes outline. That's the one that we used before. Again, it's something I think fishy with when we're trying to do the Zoom meeting at the same time. Okay, notes outline again. All right, there we are. So once you open notes outline, it brings up the export your notes preview. And here you have a lot of different options for setting whether you want inline citations, whether you want to include comment sources, show highlights, and all kinds of things like that. Once you're happy with different options, then you simply tap export, select the app that you want, and in this case, we'll select Word. And in this case, it's already imported it, so it's right here. And you'll notice it brings in the images, it brings in the text excerpts, and generally gives you now the power to kind of reorganize and resort things into your final Word format or final Word form.
Thank you. Does Liquidtext have the ability to use the app Hook to link between documents?
Hook, no, I'm actually not familiar with Hook, so no. I'd love to hear more about how you guys would want it used, but we don't use that. The way we do support linking between documents. In fact, we really love that. So as I kind of hinted at a little bit before, in this case, for example, we have the nurse's transcript and the surgeon's transcript, and we can just create arbitrary links anywhere we want to connect back and forth between them.
Thank you. If you work with a witness team, can the notes and highlights be shared from one Liquidtext account to another, or is there a team version?
That's a great question. This gets to our collaboration feature that we're planning on rolling out again, probably early to mid fall, or probably mid to late fall. And when we first launch that, it's probably going to be very direct. You sort of share an entire project with another user. One of the things that we're interested in adding shortly thereafter is team spaces. So you can have multiple pages to your workspace where you have a private page and you have shared pages and things like that. We would again be very interested in hearing any thoughts you have about how you would like to use something like that, what workflow you would be interested in to kind of help shape our thinking as we get closer to launching that. But yeah, it sounds like our collaboration would be your best bet for that.
Sort of to a question to piggyback on that collaboration feature. To share with an attorney, does the share feature tell where the excerpt is located in the document? Yes,
and I'm really glad you mentioned that. I think I actually completely forgot to demo that. So for all of these excerpts, you'll notice there's a couple things. It says, of course, on the bottom, it gives the citation of where it came from. But far better than that, you can just tap any of these and go right back to the source anywhere. One of the things that we really like about this also is if you want to, very often you want to compare a couple of different sources, and we give you a couple of ways of doing that. So for example, let's say I want to compare what I'm looking at right now here in the surgeon deposition transcript to something in the patient selection algorithm. So I can actually hold my finger on the document here. You can't see it, but I'm holding it on the top of the document, while with the other finger, I touch the little arrow on that medical prerequisites, and it brings me right to show both at the same time. So you can actually hold things in place. You can effectively hold your finger in place on a page, even though you're using a computer. So yes, we actually make it easy to find the sources, and we try to be pretty flexible about it too.
Wonderful. Let's see here. If you work with, we already answered that question. And then does the document and page citation carry over when you copy into a Word document?
Yes, and let's see, we can go look at that. We actually have the citations right there.
Okay. A question from another one of our attendees. Typically, I have over 500 documents and often over 10,000 documents, all in organized file directories. Do I still use Windows File Explorer or Liquidtext, or does Liquidtext have a management system?
Oh, that's actually a really good question. So you can drag a bunch of files into Liquidtext. So maybe the first question is, you can kind of be flexible about it and use it the way that you want, right? If you want to keep your files organized the way they are in Windows and just one at a time drag them into Liquidtext as you need them, you can certainly do that. It's very easy on our Windows version or even in our iPad and Mac versions to just drag documents right into the project and then they just appear. Now, the thing is, if you have it pre-sorted on Windows, organized in a certain way, then you would probably want to, if you're going to want to kind of work with all those in Liquidtext, you probably want to select an entire folder and just drag that entire folder into Liquidtext. And that would involve, and then at that point, you'd want to maintain the names and everything. You'd also probably want to maintain the folder hierarchy. And so that you would probably want to just drag them and bring them all in at once so that you could search through them and you'll use all the features at the same time. But if you wanted to do it incrementally, kind of one file at a time as you needed it, the app certainly works well with that also.
The documents that you bring into Liquidtext, do they become part of the Liquidtext file, or does the original remain?
So that's a great question. Yeah, they become part of the Liquidtext file. We leave your original file where it was. We don't delete it. We don't touch it. We leave it there, but we bring the files into Liquidtext and into our ecosystem so that we can search them, process them, parse them, and do all kinds of things with them to speed the whole process up. We do have some nice features though around if you annotate a file, being able to send those annotations back to the original, let's say on Dropbox or wherever the original file was, to kind of close that loop when you need it. But yeah, we bring things into the Liquidtext universe to make sure that A, we can process them, and B, especially once you're using our synchronization and collaboration, if you opt to do that, to make sure those files are available on all of your devices wherever you are.
Thank you. I think you might have addressed this a little bit ago, but I'm going to ask just in case. Does Liquidtext OCR documents beyond what Acrobat does? For example, can I search an entire dictionary or directory for a word?
So in terms of OCR, we don't support OCR yet. That's something we're planning to add in a forthcoming version, probably not too far down the road, but it's not included yet.
Okay. And then where is data and metadata stored? Does the Liquidtext company have access to anything?
So great question. Let me answer that in two parts. The first is right, and the answer to the first, let me rephrase that. The answer right now is everything is stored only and exclusively on your local device, be it your Windows machine, your Mac, or your iPad. It is literally stored on your local drive on your local device. The app has no mechanisms for automatically sending anything anywhere else. You have to go to, click the little send button if you want to send anything. Once we have our synchronization and collaboration service online, if you opt to use that, then it's stored securely on our back end, hosted by Microsoft Azure, and it is quite secure. And I'm happy to talk with folks about that in more detail, but that will be coming online later in the year. And again, that will be, if you choose to use it, a service that you opt into.
Okay, great. And then sort of along those same lines, what is the level of security for my Liquidtext account?
Well, again, it's going to depend for for right now, again, things that are just saved locally on your iPad or your Mac or your PC, it's completely dependent simply on the security of your device. We don't do anything. We don't send it off to any servers or anything like that. If you're using our backend services, then it's quite secure. We use secure sockets layer connections for sending the information back and forth. And again, it's hosted securely on a Microsoft Azure database. But we can, for folks who are interested, we're happy to have a separate call offline and actually go more into the security details of that.
Thank you. It looks like there could be a significant learning curve. Does Liquidtext offer online or individualized training?
Great question. So we have, to try to get people over the learning curve, first of all, we found that it's actually really easy to get started with it. I kind of showed you guys how to use it at a pretty advanced level with kind of all the features, not all, but a whole lot of the features, and really quickly. But we do a few things to try to make it easier for people to get started. So when you first open the app, it brings you through a simple short tutorial to get you making excerpts and kind of give you the basic lay of the land of using the app. We have a lot of extensive help systems that actually, as you can see here, we actually have short video demos built into the app showing off how to use virtually all of the major features of the software. We are actually happy to do training sessions as well for groups, for organizations that want to work with us. And we're happy to schedule some Q&A and training sessions as well. That's usually not something we do for individual users, but usually something more of for organizations.
Okay, thank you. Can you make edits to the workspace with other people?
Great question. Once our collaboration comes out later in the year, then the answer is yes. Right now, the answer is yes as well, but you'll have to send them the Liquidtext project file, and then they'll have to send it back to you. And so it works, but it's just more steps. Once the collaboration comes out, then you can literally have two people working on the same workspace at the same time, collaborating in real time.
Let's see, is there a way to share a cited version of the notes?
Share a cited version of the notes. Tell me, I'd love to know exactly what the person means. Like, so for example, the Word files that we export do have the citations. Likewise, if you were to go to, let's say, PDF export here, and maybe I'll just show you the example of how we do PDF export. And we'll just open that in, let's take something pretty standard. We'll open that in Acrobat. And no, we do not. Okay, so here, for example, you can see oh gosh. Okay, clearly I don't understand how to use Adobe Acrobat Reader. Okay, all right, much better. So here you can see we've exported our workspace into Adobe Acrobat. And you can see that each note does indeed have its source. And one of the nice things that you can do is if you tap any of these notes in the exported PDF of your workspace, it actually takes you to the source page in this attached PDF. So we list it for you, but we also actually give you the link even in the PDF export. I'm not sure if that answers the questioner's question or not, though.
Thank you. And then are you looking for outside beta testers?
We are always looking for outside beta testers. Absolutely. If you're interested, please write to us with this or any other questions or thoughts or anything. In fact, feel free to write to me directly at craig@liquidtext.net. Just craig@liquidtext.net, and we'd love to put you on the list for our upcoming betas.
Okay. And then we've gotten this question a couple times, and our attendees are wondering about the cost of the app.
Sure. So the app right now is in our low price mode. So it's $30 one time for the app for one device class. Once we're going to be moving to a subscription model shortly that will include the synchronization and the backup and the other services. But the pricing on that will be very reasonable.
Thank you. If an attorney uses this program, can the expert have access without paying for the application?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we actually have a free version of the app, and our plan is to kind of always have a free version of the app. The free version is just a lot more limited, right? So if, for example, the attorney used the paid version of the software and annotated things and brought a bunch of information together, someone could use the free version of the software to look at that file, for example, and to make some light annotations to it, but they wouldn't be able to use inking. They wouldn't be able to add new documents. A lot of the more advanced features wouldn't be enabled, but they could certainly review it, take a look at it, and use some light annotations.
Okay, thank you. And then can you add a password for exported PDFs?
That's a good question. We don't support that right now, but if that's something that's important to folks, we're very happy to listen, and we could potentially add that in the future.
Okay. And then if you use a scanned text, will that be recognized?
Yes, you can. We have tons of people who use scanned text and Liquidtext. We do not have OCR, so it will not let you search the scanned text yet. Again, we're planning on adding OCR in the near term, but until we have it, you can't search the scanned text, but you can use it. You can pull excerpts out, you can make links to it, and all those other good things.
Thank you. And then would you tell us a little bit more about Liquidtext? Is it a private company, and what does your vision look like for the company in the future?
That's a great question. So yeah, so Liquidtext came out, the very quick summary of it, like I mentioned earlier, is Liquidtext came out of my doctoral thesis. It's a closely held private company. We've actually grown almost entirely organically. We've been very fortunate. We've gotten a lot of promotion from the press and from Apple, and a lot of folks in academic, legal, medical space have just been really attracted to it. And so we've had the luxury of being able to get to this point without having to raise venture capital. We launched our first product in 2015, and we've had multiple peer-reviewed papers on the technology behind it. And the vision for the future, though, is we really see this huge opportunity, especially in places like legal and medical, for digging a lot deeper, right? Like, we talk to folks in the legal and medical community, and they talk about, using various medical repositories, various legal databases, LexisNexis, everyone's taking information from that all the time. And so we thought about, gosh, there's this great opportunity to integrate Liquidtext with these kinds of services, provide specialized tools around the legal and medical community needs. And so we think that that's actually one of the really big opportunities for us, is to have specialized feature sets, particularly for the communities that need them, and can kind of take Liquidtext to a higher level around different types of content that are needed for certain types of professions. So that's one piece of it. I think the other piece of it is, as we grow and as our users continue to use Liquidtext in deeper and more intense ways, we find there's opportunities to give them more tools for organization, right? So we're really excited about beyond even the collaboration on things like that. We're excited about more tools for organizing the workspace, more tools for bringing in different kinds of content, for bringing in audio files, bringing in video files, and really being the place where you can bring all of the information you need together for a project, integrate it, find the patterns, find the connections and the relationships, and then capture those and be able to share them and collaborate over them to create whatever it is you need to create next. So we want this to kind of really be the centerpiece of your research and knowledge synthesis kind of process.
Thank you, Craig. Those were all of the questions and comments that we have received so far.
Excellent. Well, I'll make one more mention that relates to a question earlier that I forgot to say. Someone was asking about spreadsheets, and just a point connected to that is if you were to export a spreadsheet as a PDF, one of the potential challenges is that it's large, and so I do want to emphasize that particularly on our Windows version, we do let you connect to. We do work very nicely with multiple monitors. So one of the things that we love is you can connect Liquidtext on your laptop to your 40-inch QHD monitor and have the workspace actually on a separate monitor from your documents. So if you need a lot of space, we're actually good with things like that. So with that, I think that's pretty much everything I needed to say. So unless there's any other questions, I thank you guys very much for the opportunity to speak to you today. And like I said, my email address is craig@liquidtext.net. I'd be very happy to hear any of your feedback on around any other questions, which I can pass along to our customer relations, as well as suggestions for the product, ideas, thoughts about your use cases and your workflows, and the things that you would want to see us add to this to really make it the ideal tool for you as you do your research. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Craig, and thank you everyone for joining us. Have a good afternoon.